Hi everyone, it's Plastic EP here with the fabulous Cathy, Carlson. And let me tell you, we've got a fantastic guest coming in from New York. We got Ron Aprea. And let me tell you, Cathy, give us an introduction to Ron. He's fantastic what he's done.
Well, first of all, he's a composer, arranger, producer, saxophonist, clarinetist, and flutist. And he's done amazing work. He also worked on the Walls and Bridges album. So, I can't wait to get this rolling.
This is fantastic. How are you today, Ron?
I'm really good. Considering everything, what's going on in the world, we're hanging in and we're doing fine here.
Well, all I can say is welcome to Gemstars. She's my kind of girl. She's my kind of girl. Soon you'll be close to me, 'cause you mean the most to me. You're my kind of girl. Yes, you're my kind of girl. Now, Ron, I want to get into the big question that everyone's asking. What was it like working with John Lennon and Elton John on the Walls and Bridges album in 1974? Tell everyone about that, how John approached you or how you got the gig to go down to the record plant and put down all this, the instrumentation that you put down on the backing tracks to every song. Tell us about that, Ron. It's fascinating.
Okay, well, I didn't get the call from John. I got a call from Steve Madeo. Steve Madeo is a trumpet player who had worked kind of that rock and roll circuit. He was one of the horn players. He worked with the Butterfield Blues Band and Stevie Wonder and the Rolling Stones prior to this recording. But Steve was a buddy of mine who, we grew up on Long Island, and we played in a lot of bands together. We were great friends. So Steve and I would speak all the time on the phone whenever he was in town. He'd call me and we'd just chat. And I got a call from him one night, and he said, some very casually, "What are you doing tomorrow night?" Kind of like that. I said, "Nothing." He says, "I got a little." He says, "I got a recording project." So I'm thinking, he was so casual. I'm thinking maybe it's a demo or something like that. So we continued our normal small talk and chatting. And before we hung up, I said, "Oh, by the way," I said, "who's the recording with?" He says, "Oh, John Lennon." So that's how it developed. I'm still kind of amazed at how he controlled his excitement about all that. But I guess touring with the Rolling Stones and doing a lot of things he did, maybe he really wasn't excited. I don't know, but he kind of really downplayed it. And when he said John Lennon, I said, "Wow, that sounds pretty cool." So that's how I got the gig. I was contracted by Steve Madeo.
Because I got to say, to work on Walls and Bridges in 1974, I got to tell you, that was a huge album. You got a copy of the album there. Can you show that as well? And tell us about your fantastic T-shirt.
Well, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the album, and not too long ago, it was signed by May Pang. Do you know who May Pang is?
Yeah, of course I do. Yep.
Well, May Pang was John's lady in 1974 when we did the album. Him and Yoke, they had split up, and he was with May Pang, and May was in the studio for the entire project. And what happened was, actually, we have a picture that's floating around the internet somewhere. I don't have it right in front of me, but she took a picture of Steve Madeo, John, and myself prior to the sessions. But so this is the original album that was given to me right after the session. And
that's fantastic. Now, before I hand you over to Cathy, I just want to ask you about the John Lennon T-shirt you got on. Tell me that story.
Sure. John didn't have. We had 5 horns, by the way, for that session. He called us the Little Bighorns, and he didn't have any music for the horns. We were just kind of winging it. we would sit in the studio, listen to the tracks, and make up our own lines. But to help us, I asked him for some lead sheets of the music. Lead sheets are piano parts with the vocal part and the chords, so that we can at least see what the form of the songs were and what the chords were. And so I went into another room to photostat the music so that we could all have a sheet to make 5 sheets, one for each of the guys. And John comes walking in as I'm photostating the music, and he takes the music out. He sticks his face on the glass plate and hits the button. He still had his glasses on. He hits the button, and 2 blinding lights later, a couple of photostats come sliding out. And I'm thinking, what is he doing? He's gonna go blind. Why would anybody do that? But that was John, and he handed one to me. He handed one to Steve, and he said, "Here, hang on to these." He says, "These will be worth something someday." And that was it. And he smiled and he left the room.
And then you made the T-shirts. Show us the T-shirts, because I want every Beatle fan and John Lennon fan to see that T-shirt. Dan, you took that and made that into T-shirts. I mean, that's unbelievable. And you gave that out to people. What? You made an album as well, a tribute album to John Lennon.
I did. And the reason for this T-shirt, this is the photostat that was put on these T-shirts. And we had this Kickstarter program to raise some funding to, for the production. And what we did was we gave anyone who donated, we gave them a T-shirt with John Lennon's face on it, his photostated face. This is an original that you're not going to see in too many places. Anyway,
I got to say, that's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard, Ron. Go for it, Cathy.
So, of course, Ron, we can't forget that you have a book out. The book is The Era I Almost Missed. And that's one of the reasons why you're on the internet. So show us a copy of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the book.
Okay, well, The Era I Almost Missed, the title is pertaining to the big band era. The big band era was 30s and 40s. And I grew up, I started playing the saxophone probably in the 50s, and didn't really get into the business until mid 50s, probably, or late 50s. And that was pretty much the tail end of the big band era. But I remember the big bands. My mother would take me to the Paramount Theater. They had live shows, and between the movies, they would have big bands all the time. So I was exposed to these great big bands, and that's what I wanted to do as a kid. I would sit up there and I'd get goosebumps listening to that, 16 or 17 musicians playing together, the excitement, the energy. As a kid, it just gave me goosebumps. So that's what I wanted to do, and I got in the game a little bit late, and I almost missed it, but I did catch the tail end of the big band era, and I got to play with some of those great bands that I saw as a kid and listened to on the recordings. And I toured with Lionel Hampton, Les Elgart, Woody Herman, and I got to play with even Ray McKinley, who took over the Glenn Miller band when Glenn Miller died. I got to play with that band and bunches of. But again, it was the end of the era, and it wasn't the heyday like it was in the 40s. But I did get an opportunity to play with those great bands. So that's basically what the book's about, and the stories that some of the things that happened to me and things that I observed on those tours. There's a lot of one-nighters doing bus tours all over the country and flying to different places, and a lot of crazy things going on the road. So I wrote about all those crazy things.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And just to talk about a little bit, your wonderful wife, Angela De Niro. I mean, you're married and you end up, how did you settle in? You bought a house in Five Towns College. You bought a house in 1998, 1999. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Your voice is breaking up a little bit. It's Angela. Her show name is Angela De Niro, and I met Angela when she was seen with a local big band, a dance band on Long Island. I had just come off the road with Skitch Henderson's band, and I took this gig with this Long Island based band, and Angela was the singer with that band, and we did a gig. In fact, it's kind of strange, but the gig we played was in a place called Terrace on the Park. It was a big catering hall right here in Queens on the World's Fair site that was here in the '60s. It's a big catering hall, and now we came full circle. We lived on Long Island for quite a while, but 2 years ago we moved to Forest Hills, and eventually bought a co-op. And looking out my window, we're looking at the Terrace on the Park, the same building where we met. So we kind of came full circle. But that and she was the singer with the band, of course. And she has 3 albums to her credit now. She's a jazz singer. And right before the pandemic, we were doing regular performances at Birdland in the city, which is why we moved back into the city. We did a lot of work with Birdland and other clubs, and we were doing a lot of work in Jersey at a club called Trumpets. We had our big band with Angela singing with that band for 6 years. So we decided to move off Long Island back into the city. And of course, we were doing those TV shows with Ginger Broderick. We were co-hosting for her. And we really loved doing live TV. It was a lot of fun. But since the pandemic, we haven't done anything.
Ron, I've got to ask you, playing the saxophone, the clarinet, and as I said, being an expert in these instruments and the flute, I mean, there's got to be a lot of work for a person of you with your standard of playing, because they're not easy instruments to play, and to actually be on recordings, that must be like a fantastic buzz for you once you're in the recording studio and you're on the record or on the CD. I mean, how great is that? How do you feel when you offer something to these recordings?
I'm always amazed when anything comes out of my horn. It's kind of a minor miracle, I mean, I don't think I'm alone in this. I lived most of my career in the jazz world, and we do a lot of improvising, a lot of spontaneous music, and going to gigs, I'm always wondering, like, will anything come out tonight? I mean, will I have any kind of a flow going? And is it going to work? And so there's always a certain amount of apprehension. I'm always surprised and happily surprised when it all works the way I want it to. And rarely does it ever work exactly the way we want it to. Sometimes better, sometimes not as well. But we're never really 100% sure. As a jazz musician, we hope that every night's great, but they're not.
Okay, wonderful. Now, you did mention that you love to work with Lionel. Can you tell us some stories about Lionel?
Wow, Lionel Hampton. I can probably talk for days about him. I started touring with him in 1969, and he was known as running big bands. But during that period, for whatever reasons, probably financial, it was a smaller band with just three horns. It was me on alto saxophone. We had a tenor saxophonist and a trumpet player. So it was a small group, which I preferred. I really actually enjoyed the small band better, because there's more room for soloing and interacting with him. I joined that band in 1969, and probably right through 1974, 75 was probably the last gig I played with him. It was always a treat to be on the bandstand with him, because he had this energy and this excitement. He was a real showman, kind of a jazz player. He was a great vibe player, but he also was always very aware of his audience, and he would play drum solos. He would even tell jokes and funny stories. He was an entertainer. He would sing as well, but in some ways, that may have been to his detriment, because he was a great vibraphone player, and all that showy stuff, I think in a lot of ways may have distracted from the fact that he was such a great musician. But anyway, to answer your question, I love playing with him, because we always connected with the audience.
Wonderful. Yeah, you also did a 1998 Lionel Hampton Jazz festival, which included Frank Foster, all types of people, Ray Brown, even Diana Krall. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, what preceded that was after many years, after touring with him, say since 1975, I guess, I hadn't seen him again for probably 20 years. You know, we all go our different ways, and you know, I was doing a lot of other things, freelancing, trying to keep my family afloat, you know, and pay the bills. So you do everything. I was doing a lot of freelancing, and I didn't see him for quite a few years. But I bumped into him one night at a CD release party in Manhattan, and after so many years, and I didn't know that he had already suffered a couple of strokes, and he was in a wheelchair, and happy to see me. I mean, his head. I was totally knocked out by his memory. We talked after the gig was over. We had, and when he saw me, he just like, Ronnie, oh, he was happy to see me, and we had a really nice conversation, and we exchanged contact information, and I gave him my phone number, he gave me his, and we started getting together. And Angela, I, and my son Matthew, we would pay him regular visits and just keep him company. You know, he was still working, he was playing occasional gigs, but the big thing was that one of those visits, I brought up an album that I had just recorded with Angela, and we sat there and listened to it. And he loved it. He loved her voice, and he loved my band. So I half jokingly said, "Let's do one with you, Hamp." And he said, "Sure, man." You know, and I thought I heard him wrong. I said, "You want to record with my band?" He says, "Yeah." So we did an album, and I called it "Swinging with Legends," and it featured Angela with my big band, and Lionel Hampton played vibes, and Frank Foster and Luther Backen also with two of the other legends. So the album was called "Swinging with Legends," and that started a whole new era of me and Angela, I should say, Angela, I, and Lionel Hampton. And we spent a lot of time visiting him and hanging out with him. But right after the recording, he was so excited about Angela's voice and that whole recording experience with my band. I had a really, I had all the best musicians in New York on the session. This was like the production of my life. I don't think I'll ever do a better album than this. And Hamp was on it to make it even better. So right after this, he called the next day, and he wanted to know if we wanted to go out to his festival. He says, "Ron," he says, "I want you and Angela. I want Angela to come out to my festival." He says, "It's my 90th birthday celebration in Moscow, Idaho. It's the University of Idaho, and they have a big jazz festival every year. And a section of that college is actually called the Lionel Hampton University. And every year they have a big jazz festival. But this was going to be special. This was his 90th birthday, and he wanted Angela to come and sing Midnight Sun." That's the song. We found out in that conversation, by the way, that Angela was the first and only singer to ever record Midnight Sun with him, and he wrote that song 40 years prior. And a lot of great singers have done that tune, but none of them with him. So we found out the day after we recorded it that we made kind of a little history there. So he wanted her to come out to his festival and sing with his big band. So that's what we did. But our friendship lasted right up until he passed.
I got to say, Ron, these are amazing stories. And I got to ask you two quick questions if I can. Now, with the big bands, would you say Benny Goodman is one of your biggest influences, or who's your biggest influences from the big bands?
You know, it's funny you say you brought up Benny Goodman, because Benny Goodman was the first band that I got turned on to as a kid. When I heard Benny Goodman band when I was back in the 50s, prior to that, I used to listen to Pete Fountain a lot. Pete Fountain used to do the Lawrence Welk show. My parents were big fans of Lawrence Welk, although I wasn't a big fan of Lawrence Welk. I loved the show because it featured Pete Fountain, who was a great clarinet player, and he had a lot of influence on me, and maybe one of the reasons why I wanted to play the clarinet. But that led me to Benny Goodman, and when I heard the Benny Goodman band, I was just totally knocked out. I was buying all his albums. So he was the first big band leader that I fell in love with, and then from there I went on to listen to other bands like Duke Ellington's band, Count Basie's band, and some of the other great big bands. But it was the Benny Goodman band that actually put me in that big band direction.
You know what's amazing, Ron? I mean, I get the feeling, like even doing this interview, that the music, you're like a conduit and the music just comes through you. Same like with Angela and your band. It's like you're talking to somebody that's like a musical conduit that just like the music just flows out of you. It's like, it seems to me so natural as we speak. It's just like, I've never had that vibe for anybody before. But it's just amazing even talking to you and the talent that you have and what you've done with your musical career. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you, I know Beatle fans, and I know a lot of fans, right? I know how they think. And I have to ask you this question about Walls and Bridges. When you were there at the record plant, Elton John was there with you at the time or not?
No. As I said before, we were there were just 5 of us, plus John, of course. John was mostly in the booth. There were just 5 of us doing overdubs. So I never met Elton John.
Did Elton John do piano after?
No.
You guys?
No. I think we were the last layer.
Okay.
Because I heard Elton. I heard his voice beneath what we were doing, and I heard John's voice. So I think the vocals were done. You never know if they come back and redo them or clean them up or whatever. But it seems to me that the vocals and all the rhythm parts were already down, and we just put the final touch on that album.
Well, I got to say, Ron, these are amazing stories, and I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than this. If you've got any other questions to ask Cathy, go for it.
Well, you mentioned your son is a musician. What is he doing? Your son?
My son?
Yeah.
My son is a violinist, and it's interesting. He started off as a pianist. He started playing when he was shortly after he was born. He used to sit on my lap, and he loved hearing the music, and he would just tinkling around on the piano. And as he got a little bit older, we got him a teacher, and he started studying piano, and he was developing into an amazing classical. He loved classical music, and he was developing into this amazing classical pianist. And friends of mine who were good piano players, they were astounded at how well he was playing at such a young age. But when he got into junior high school, and I didn't realize this until recently, when he got into junior high school, about the 7th grade, I guess they call it middle school now. He was about in the 7th grade. He fell in love with the violin, and he changed courses. And I was a little disappointed because I really thought he was going to be a concert pianist. But if that's what he's hearing, that's what he's hearing. So he made the switch, and we supported that, of course. And he went on, and he became an amazing violinist. He went. He studied. He's got his degree in music from Eastman School of Music. He studied with some of the great teachers. He performed in Carnegie Hall, I think 4 or 5 times, with the New York Youth Symphony when he was only in his teens. And the part that I found interesting was when I was a kid, I wanted to be a drummer, as you might have read in the book. I wanted to be a drummer, and then I wanted to play the clarinet like Pete Fountain. But in the 7th grade, I was in a school band. It wasn't a jazz band. My school didn't have a jazz band. It was more of a what's the word? Concert type band. Yeah, doing mostly classical type pieces and whatever. But right behind my section of saxophones, I had this wonderful, beautiful sounding instrument. What the heck is that? And I turned around, and it was an alto saxophone. And the drums and the clarinet went out the window. I said, that's what I want to play. So, and it's kind of funny because Matthew, at the same age, switched from piano to violin. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but whatever. That's how I went with Matthew. And he's on, by the way, he's featured all over that Lennon tribute. I used strings for that album. I used a full string section. He contracted, and he put a beautiful string section together. And you'll hear a ton of him. I wrote right into his strengths. You know, I knew what he's capable of playing. And I would write all these beautiful little obligatos for him to play. And
I got to say, this is an amazing, fascinating interview, Cathy. And I want to thank you, Ron. But before we go, I'd like you to tell everybody the links, where they can find your music, where they can buy your books, where they can find you and Angela on the net. So tell everybody all the links out there on social media.
Okay, well, my website, let's start there. My website is www.ronaprea, RONAPREA.com. And there's that shall lead to, there's video clips there that'll take you to YouTube, and there's audio clips from my albums. Angela has 3 albums, by the way. I have 3 albums, and I produced a bunch of other artists. I had my own recording studio for a period of time, and I was producing a lot of talented people. And there's clips of all my productions, or at least snippets of all my productions, on my website. So that should be
fantastic. And the book, where can they purchase the book there as well?
Yeah, same place, www.ronaprea.com.
Right, I'll just get you to show the book one more time if you can, Ron, before we go.
All right.
Everybody go out there and buy the book. That's a fantastic book, The Era Almost Missed. As I said, Cathy, it's been a fantastic show. And I just want to say, from Plasky P and Cathy C.C. Carlson and Ron Aprea, I want to thank everybody. Don't you agree, Cathy? How great is the show?
It's totally fantastic. I'm blown away. And I can't wait to get Angela on next time.
All right, this was great, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ron. See everyone.
Okay.
We'll see you again on Gemstars.